Buenos dias, all. RGT85 here. Hope everyone is having a great day. I'm still not on camera because I still don't like the way my facial hair looks. Give it a day or two. It should be back into normal progression. And also, kind of smells like a fart in my basement. And I'm not sure why, because I wasn't really down here yesterday, and you know, it should smell fine. I don't know if Chip Minton came down here and maybe left me a little present or something. If you don't get that Chip Minton reference, make sure you watch my April Fool's video from April 1st. But we're going to talk about The Legend of Zelda today, because The Legend of Zelda, I mean, really, it's always a hot topic, but recently it's definitely becoming more of a hot topic because of the fact that, once again, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, Breath of the Wild sequel, whatever you want to call it, has been delayed yet again. And, you know, there's a lot of controversy around this. There's a lot of talks around this. My stance is, you know, while it is sort of normal for 3D Zelda games to end up getting delayed, I look at the bigger picture with this, and to me, it's like, if any other company decided to delay a big marquee game 2 times after announcing it, we would be a little bit concerned. We would wonder what is going on with this game. You know, are there problems with it? Like, are we going too big of a scope? And people always go back to, well, you know, there was COVID and stuff. Nintendo is a Japanese company. And when I say, well, I understand they're a Japanese company, but they should have some branches to work on stuff beyond just Japan, because of the work at home conditions of Japan aren't quite like the rest of the world. And people got mad at me for saying that on the Spawncast this past Saturday night, and I just thought that was really bizarre. Like, why wouldn't you want to expand? Why wouldn't you want to have more companies within your own umbrella making games for you, helping you out with your games, just in case a situation arises, just in case something ends up happening? Plus, you're increasing production of games overall. But The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, of course, has been delayed. It looks like a spring 2023 game. More than likely, it'll probably be early March. I think it'll come out before the end of March. That just kind of makes sense. Over 6 years since the game initially was, you know, the original game was released, so maybe they're doing some more stuff to this game. But with that, we have sort of a gaping hole, if you will, when we look at the Nintendo Switch library for the rest of 2022, because the general consensus was, you know, Breath of the Wild 2, possibly Bayonetta 3 were going to be the heavy hitter games for the tail end of 2022. We still don't know what Nintendo is planning because, you know, they don't really talk about that until E3, but with Breath of the Wild 2 now off the table, and really Bayonetta 3, I'm not quite sure that that's a lock. You know, look at Platinum as a company. They're kind of all over the place right now. Some of their games aren't quite hitting the high marks that we expect from Platinum. I think there's a little bit of cause for concern, but it seems like we're once again back on the mentality that we are going to get more Legend of Zelda games in 2022, coming to us with some re-releases. Now, this was originally talked about for the Legend of Zelda 35th anniversary, which came and went. Nintendo really didn't do a lot of stuff. You know, they didn't really do much for it, and, you know, we got a little Game & Watch, and, like, that was pretty much it. So you kind of got to wonder, you know, did Nintendo want to do more? We, of course, got Skyward Sword HD, came out at the full $60 price point, and a lot of people were upset by that because, oh, it's just a Wii game, it's just a Wii game. I can at least somewhat understand why this was a $60 game, because of the fact that they really had to rework the entire control system, because the game was built for Wii Motion Plus controls. And you know what? I am damn glad that they did, because that game went from an average game to me to a very enjoyable Legend of Zelda experience. I had never beaten that game before. It was like the mainline Zelda game that always eluded me, that I never beat before, and then I was able to do it with the Switch version of the game because they made the controls more normal. So to me, I really appreciated that. But of course, we heard rumblings around that time of other Legend of Zelda games that were potentially in development with Nintendo Switch versions. Obviously, games that you cannot currently play on your Nintendo Switch via any of the online service stuff. more than likely talking about games like The Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. Now, this was actually sort of teased by a lot of video game insiders and industry people last year as potentially being announced for the 2021 year, but there was kind of a problem. Because of that aforementioned $60 price tag on The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, could they really talk about a double pack with these games coming in at $60 where you get both Wind Waker and Twilight Princess? So because of that, a lot of people felt like the game just kind of got pushed off to the side. They didn't want to do a whole big Zelda thing, which, I mean, they really should have done. This is one of your marquee franchises. This is one of your best-selling franchises now. People assimilate Nintendo with like Zelda and Mario, so I don't know. It seemed like a bit of a missed opportunity, but no matter if and when these games come, and supposedly they are going to come, we know that these games are going to sell. But what comes down to it is, are they going to come this year? Because now, like I said, we have this large window of opportunity. We have this large window of, you know, chance for more games to slip in and, you know, come in and essentially take up the void for the lack of Breath of the Wild 2. More Zelda is always a good thing. And when you look at games like Wind Waker, when you look at games like Twilight Princess, these games are pretty much ready for the Switch. They could pretty much come out and be announced today and released tomorrow, and I don't really think anyone would be super surprised because of the fact that these games came out on the Wii U. You have to remember, we got Twilight Princess HD, we got Wind Waker HD on the Wii U. So these games are already available in HD. These games already have the graphical update that we would expect from a GameCube or a Wii game that, you know, we would want. Things like HD textures, high definition stuff, really, and even the controls, because the Wii controller, it was a standard controller. All of these games utilize standard controls unless you played the Wii version of the game with Twilight Princess. But with Wind Waker, like, the controls are there. The games are there. They're right there for the taking. And I definitely think, I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but I definitely think that there is a good chance that we do see these games, and we do see these games in 2022, some fall releases. But with that being said, we have to wonder about one thing, and that's the price point of these games, because from a business perspective, it makes perfect sense. You want Zelda to be a forefront title. With Breath of the Wild 2, you know, getting pushed back to 2023, it's good to release Zelda games. Nintendo themselves have said that they want to release like a Zelda game a year, whether it be a remake, a remaster, or a new game, or even like an offshoot game or something like that. So it makes sense from a timeline perspective that you're pushing back Breath of the Wild 2 to put something like Wind Waker, to put something like Twilight Princess into the mix. But the pricing of this will be very interesting, because what do you do? Do you do a double pack where you get both of these games at $60 a pop? Do you release these individually at $60 a pop? Do you maybe release them at $40 a pop? Because I don't know if Nintendo knows this, but you can do things like discounted first-party games. You know what? They do know this. They actually do know this, because we're seeing it with games like Nintendo Switch Sports. We saw it with Clubhouse games, 1-2 Switch. But as far as bigger titles are concerned, like more mainline titles, even if they are remakes or remasters, Nintendo doesn't really care. Now, they did do the Mario collection, which consisted of a Wii game and a GameCube game, and of course, the N64 game of Super Mario 64, the greatest game of all time, or one of them in my opinion. So I feel like it's not unreasonable to want Nintendo to do that, but it just depends on what they do with these games. If they decide to do these games, I really feel like they kind of might want to. If you want to keep up with that 1 year Zelda, or that one Zelda game per year mantra, then you need something for this year. And with games like Metroid Prime 4 not coming out this year, I think we can all agree on that. With games like Bayonetta 3 being said to be coming out in 2022, but like I said, I'm still not completely sold on that. I think there's a big window of opportunity here. And I think from a business perspective, it makes sense. It makes sense for everyone involved, because you're still getting the Legend of Zelda stuff out there. You could do so much stuff with this. Like, you don't even have to just do a re-release of these HD versions of the game. You could do things like make a collector's bundle of the Switch, or the Switch Lite and things like that. And people will, I would buy a Zelda Switch Lite themed bundle that came with the 2 games for like, I don't know, the standard Switch is like $200. So let's say, I don't know, $279.99 or something like that. I get both of the games and I get a standard or a Switch Lite that's done up to be like the Legend of Zelda. You do it with Pokemon. Why wouldn't you do it with this? Now, of course, there is always the offshoot chance that there's a smaller Zelda game coming along. You know, we've seen games like Cadence of Hyrule. Could it be something like we saw with the Link's Awakening remake, which, you know, definitely had some problems. But I still feel like there's going to be Zelda in 2022. Whether it's the Wind Waker HD and Wind Waker HD and, of course, Twilight Princess HD, whether it's an offshoot game, whatever it may be, you're going to get something from The Legend of Zelda. I think it'll be very interesting to see the price point and what the games are and really what the reaction is from a lot of people, because once again, you know, these are still quote unquote old games that we've all played a bunch of times before, but I mean, that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing to me. I don't think anyone's played Twilight Princess recently. Like maybe the most recent time you played it was when it re-released on the Wii U and you had fun with it, but I think it's still a game worth revisiting. You know, there's so many secrets, and I really like Twilight Princess, by the way. I think it's a phenomenal game, and I don't understand why more people don't feel that way, because I think it's right up there with the best Zelda games. That's just me, though, because it kind of felt like a more Ocarina of Time style game. You know, I just absolutely love that game. But that's how I see The Legend of Zelda sort of panning out, I should say, in 2022. I definitely think you're going to get some more games. What those games are, I think it's a safe bet to bet on Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD, but how are they going to price this? What are they going to do with this? And I want to know what you guys want to see. What do you want to see from The Legend of Zelda in 2022? Do you think anything's going to happen? Do you think they're just going to go radio silent on it and then show off what the hell's the name of the game? I can't think this morning. Breath of the Wild 2. That's what I'm looking for. Breath of the Wild 2. Do you think they're going to show it off in September and then that just be the Zelda stuff? Or do you think there's more stuff planned for this year? Let me know in the comments section down below. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, I'm usually on camera making stupid faces, but I messed up shaving my mustache the other day, and I just don't like the way it looks. When I was a small child, my stepdad shaved off his mustache, and he looked like a completely different person. And I specifically remember running and screaming and crying because I was like, who is this strange man? So I don't want to do that to you guys. I don't want you guys to go running and crying and who took over RGT? Is it Chip Minton? Did Chip Minton come and shave off RGT's mustache? You never know, because things get wild here at the house. And as always, guys, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Thank you for putting up with me. Later.